Hello everybody, Steven here from Cardboard Coalition, and today I figured I'd bring you guys a how to play of Architects of the West Kingdom, produced by Renegade Game Studios, and Garphill Games, and it's designed by Shem Phillips and S.J. McDonald. All right, so we have a setup here for 4 players. And I got it kind of smashed in as much as I can. It still kind of works, but we'll work through it. All right, so let's go ahead and run through the setup really quick. So to begin with, we have the main board down, obviously. Then we shuffle up the black market cards, which you have right here. These are the black market cards. This is the small black market, and on the back side is the large black market, and we'll talk about that when we talk about how to play the game. All right, now we have the rewards cards are shuffled and put out. So I had to remember this for a second. So these are the reward cards up here, and how you set it up is you do 2 cards for each player. So in this instance, we'd have 8 cards. We have 4 players plus 1. Then you go ahead and put the rewards cards down. Next, you go ahead and throw down the deck cards, which are over there. After the deck cards, you have the multiplier card, and we'll just talk about that really quick. And I got to walk back and forth to kind of do this. So this is a multiplier card, and how this works is you use it for anything. It just helps you, so you're not supposed to run out of any supply here. So if you put a stone on there, then you have 5 stones. You don't have 6, you have 5 stones. And that could be anything. You could put silver on there, right? That would give you 5 silver. And on the back side, it has 10, right? Same thing. You just put that there. And that's how the multiplier works. This is the thing I had to keep in mind. Remember that whatever's on top doesn't mean 1 plus 5, it just means 5 times whatever's in that little box. So that's how the multiplier cards work. So we got our multiplier cards out. Then we do the apprentice deck, which is this blue deck over here. One thing I like about these games, Raiders, well, I guess it would be the North Sea games and the West Kingdom games, is they're color coded, and it's very topographical, and it's very easy to understand what you're supposed to do. Granted, you might have to read over the rules to get it, but it's very easy because it's color-coded. So anyways, there's the apprentice cards. We have them out. You shuffle them, and you put out your 8 apprentices. Apprentices. You put out your 8 apprentices. All right. Then you go ahead and shuffle the building cards, which are right here. And you go ahead and put the building cards down in this area. These are both in the marketplace area. We'll get to that here in a little bit. All right. Then you go ahead and you place your clay, your wood, your stone, your gold, your marble, and your silver. After that, you go ahead and you take 4 silver and you put it here in the tack stand. So we got 4 silver right here in the tack stand. Next, each player takes a player board and they take their matching color meeples. Each player gets 10 meeples. After that, you go ahead and put the color marker for each player under the cathedral, the bottommost, right? You don't put it here, not the bottommost, below the bottommost. So if you see that, I have them below the actual cathedral track, and we'll talk about all this when we get there. So the cathedral track, and I'm going to try to follow what it says in the book in order and stuff. So you put your marker under the cathedral track, and then you put a marker for each color on the 7. Let's see if I can do this without spilling them. The 7 of the virtue track. So once you have that done, then you go ahead and do a kind of drafting phase, which is kind of fun. In Raiders of the North Sea, they suggest this with the higher player count, but they say you do this no matter what. And how that works, well, I guess we'll go ahead and leave these here. You go ahead and each player gets dealt 4 cards, right? So each player gets 4 cards, and this is still part of the setup. Out of those 4 cards, they go ahead and take a look at those cards, and they decide which card they want to keep. Then they pass the cards to their left. Then they get a new deck of cards from someone, right? They flip it over, they go through them, they pick one card, slide it under, once again, pass what's left to the left. Now, they'll get their final pass to them. They have 2 cards. They'll pick one of those cards as their player card, and they'll take the last card that they didn't choose, and it goes underneath the building deck. And this is the deck of buildings, right? And it goes back there, and that's for everybody. So that is the setup for the game. I don't think I missed anything, and hopefully it all makes sense. So let's go ahead and jump into the, let's go with some of the things to remember. And like I said, I am trying to follow the book to try to keep you guys in on what to do. So worker investment, there's 3 things they want you to think about and remember. Worker investment. The more you put a worker in a spot, the more things you get. For example, over here, it is 1 stone per worker. These big circles mean you can put a lot of workers down. As many workers from as many players can be placed in that spot. Single circles mean only a single player can be placed there. Over here, the outlines means only a single player can be placed there. So, worker investment. The more workers you have in these areas, the more you get, right? The example right here with the silversmith is you get 1 silver plus 1 silver per worker. So if you put 1 worker down, 1 silver. The second worker you put down, you get 2 silver, so on and so forth. You get to do different things here depending on how many workers you have, things like that. The other thing to think about is capturing workers. So, and we'll talk about how you do this, but you can capture people's workers. If you want to get them out of here or out of here, you can capture them, and you end up taking those workers and you set them inside your little captured worker area on your player card. So this bottom part we'll talk about at the end of the player card, but this is where you capture workers, this is where you put your workers, you can put your supplies and stuff there too. So you can capture workers. You can also take workers to the guardhouse and drop them off and earn coin, and we'll explain how that works. All right, and the other thing that they want you to keep in mind is this virtue track over here. So the virtue track, you can go up and down in virtue depending on what you do. Hiring, apprentices, there's the buildings sometimes give you virtue. You got the king's house. There's a few places, and I don't want to keep repeating myself. So there's a few places in here where you can get or gain or lose virtue. Gaining or losing virtue will give you pros and cons, as in victory points and things you can do on the board, which I will talk about as we go through all this. All right, so let's go ahead and start with what each area, well, we'll start with this. I guess we should start with this. The way to win the game is to have the most points possible. So anything with this yellow little flag is either plus or minus points. That counts toward your points. You have some here. You also, in the building cards, you have points. And let's see, we also have where you can get points here, and that's per worker, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So to win, you want to have the most points, and there are some tie things that go on. We'll talk about that at the end. So how the in-game mechanic works is once this is filled up, and if you look on here, there's numbers, right? This is +3, +4, +5. And what that means is if you're playing with 2 players, you don't go to the +3 spot. 4 players, you don't go to the +4, 5, +5. So what this means is when you go ahead and do certain actions, and we'll explain it when we get there, you place workers down, right? So let's say it's a 4 player, you place workers to here. Once the 4th one's placed, the next worker goes down here. Once this is all the way filled, the bottom row, all the way to how many ever workers, so we're setting up with 4. Once that hits, that's the end game mechanic. Once someone puts their worker down there, does what they want to do, every player at the board gets 1 more turn, and then you tally up points. So to win, you want to have the most points. And what starts the end phase, which starts the last counting and stuff, is when a worker gets placed in whatever the rightmost spot is on the bottom row. So 2 players would be here, 3 players, 4 players, and then 5 players. So that's how you win. So now let's go ahead and go through the places and what you can do in each location. So I'm just glancing down because I want to make sure I hit all the locations and I keep this in mind. So the quarry, the mine, and the silversmith. These all work fairly similar. So you got the quarry, the mines, the silversmith. I feel like the forest should be in there. The forest is in there. So the mines, the quarry, the forest, and the silversmith. So what happens is you put a worker down and you do the action. This is a worker replacement game. Put down a worker, do that action. Now, the worker here is you get 1 wood per every worker you have here. So you remember what I had said, you build up your workers. 1 worker, 1 wood, 2 workers, 2 wood, so on and so forth. The quarry works the same, but you get stone. Now, the silversmith is a little different. You put a worker down, you get 1 silver plus a silver for every worker. So your first worker you put down, you get 2 silver. Your second worker you put down, you get 3 silver. 1 silver plus how many ever workers you have there. The mines is similar for clay, but different for gold. So we'll go over that. Like silver, as soon as you put a worker down, you get 1 clay plus an additional clay for every worker you have. So you put down 1 worker, you get 2 clays. You put down 2 workers, you get 3 clays. Now the other thing you can do at the mine is you can get yourself some gold. And how that works is once you have 2 workers down, you can get 1 gold. Now you can't split your workers up. If you have 3 workers, right? If 3 workers are placed over here, you can't do 2 clay for 1 worker and then 3 gold for the other. You have to do whatever it is you choose to do. You can do either clay or gold. So if you had, let's say for example, blue had 3 workers here, right? They have 3 little workers sitting there and they have 2, right? To do the action, they put down their 3rd worker because they want more clay or gold. They can do 2 things. They can either take 4 clay, 1, plus 1 for each worker, or they can take 1 gold. Even though they have 3 workers, they can take 1 gold. They can do one of those 2 things. Now, the next place that we have to look at, or we should look at, is the King's Storehouse. So let's go over the King's Storehouse really quick. So the King's Storehouse, you get actions per people that you put there. So if you go to the King's Storehouse, right, one action you can do is you can give 1 stone, 1 wood, or 1 clay. Oh, sorry, back up, not 1. You have to give 2 to go up the virtue track. So either 2 stone, 2 wood, 2 clay, or a combination of them. So 1 stone, 1 wood, 1 clay. 2 of one of these items, right, to move up the virtue track. The other thing you can do is you can give 3 either stone or wood or a combination of the 2 to get 1 marble. Those are the things you can do at the storehouse. Move up virtue or get marble by paying the price that's there. All right. The next spot we have is the workshop. Yay, we get to work. All right, and this is what I keep talking about if you haven't noticed yet, is the iconography really tells you things, but there's something important to keep in mind in the workshop. There are taxes in this game. That's how the tax stand fills up. So how taxes work is anywhere where you see a red coin, it means that goes to taxes. So in this case at the workshop, you would pay 4 coins in total. 2 coins would go to taxes and the other 2 coins would go to the, I don't want to say discard pile, but the material pile. Let's say that for now. So you can do 2 things here at the workshop. Either you can get an apprentice, right? And to do that, you put your meeple down and you pay the 2 coins to the taxes and the 2 coins to the material pile, and then you can get this apprentice. I'm going to step over here to the other side. I know you guys can't tell, but you might hear some noise of me walking around. All right, so because I have 1 meeple here, I can pick from this column, either apprentice, and I just pick them up and they go in front of or next to my board somewhere. All right, so what goes on here is you can pick only from the column. As you see here, there's 1 meeple, 2 meeple, 3 meeple, 4 meeple, only from the column where you have meeples down. Now, a way to bypass this, and this is for the apprentices still, we're still talking about the apprentice at the workshop, is you can pay gold to skip a column in a row. This is a row, this is a row, it's a column, 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 right? So in this case, since Blue put his worker down, I'm just saying his because it's me, well, it's a she because she put her worker down. She wants this card, let's say. She wants the pickpocket. So she would put down 1 silver, which allows her to jump this spot and get the pickpocket. Now, if she had 2 workers, this was her second go here, if she puts down 1 silver, she gets to either get the pickpocket or the gatekeeper. So basically what she's doing is by paying that silver, it lets her bump up. Just for that round though. She can't constantly come back and bump up. And then later on when someone buys an apprentice, they get any silver left on the apprentice. So either you get the apprentices by 1, putting down a worker. Well, you have to put down a worker no matter what. And you pay the gold, 2 taxes, 2 to the pile, and you take from that first column. If you have another worker there, you could take from the first 2 full columns, and then so on and so forth. Or you can pay silver to skip. You're saying, I'm skipping this person, I'm skipping that person, right? But in this sense, since you have 2 players down, you're skipping that person, so you have the choice of the next 2 people in that row. Now, it seems a little weird, but they do mention that it depends on the row. If you put the silver here, it doesn't mean you can go after one of these 2 guys. In that case, you would want to put a silver here and then go after those 2. And this is just putting silver on the players. Now, go back, and now that I think about it, and I do this all the time, part of the step that I forgot is a certain amount of silver goes to each character depending on their turn order. I just chose someone for the turn order and then went clockwise. And you get 1 more silver per person. All right, so that is going back to the workshop. The first thing you could do is you could pay your money and get an apprentice. Once an apprentice is taken, right, if you buy an apprentice, you just go ahead and take the top card off the apprentice deck and slap it down. Now you have a new apprentice. All right, now the next thing that you do, next thing that you could do at the workshop is you can get a building card. So how that works though is you have to have 2 workers. So on the first go round, you cannot get a new building card. Now if you put another worker down, now you have a choice of either hiring an apprentice or getting a worker. So what this means is you can get 3 now. Oh, it's 1 per 2. So you get 1 for having the second worker there. So that's 1 card. And then you get 1 more for every 2 workers you have there. And they can go in your hand. And you can decide to use these buildings if you want. And we'll talk about what happens in the building cards right now, I guess. But first we'll go through the apprentice. I want to point out one thing. You could only have 5 apprentices, and you could only have 6 building cards. 6 building cards in your hand. You can have as many as you want that you've already built, but in your hand, right? In your hand of cards, you start with 3. You can only have 6 total in your hand at the end of your turn. Now, apprentices, you could only have 5. Now, what you can do is you can substitute apprentices and buildings. So if you find one that you want more than one that's in your hand, maybe things have changed, you haven't gotten the stuff that you really wanted to build that building, you can swap them out. So you can only have 5 apprentices and 6 buildings in your hand. You can have as many as you want buildings put out. Apprentices go out, straight out. So now let's talk really quick about the apprentices and the buildings. Now that my mind's on it, we'll go ahead and get the squire here so we can kind of look at it. So the squire, the card tells you some things. There's the name. This is the type of worker. I believe that's mason, if I'm right. There's mason, woodcutter, and stone cutter. So that means mason. Now there's a reason why you might want the mason. We'll talk about that on the building card. So what it also shows on here is whenever you see the lightning bolt, that means immediate action. So as soon as you hire him, you get to move up 1 up the virtue track. Now this symbol right here, as you see it's in the brown area, it tells you when you can use this ability down here. So what this is saying, this little bag with the circles, is when you send people to the guardhouse, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But this says if you have 0 people in the guardhouse, you get 1 gold if you have this apprentice. And that is triggered when the guardhouse happens. Let's see if we can grab another one. We don't got another one there. Let me go ahead and flip through some of these cards really quick. I know there's more because I've seen them. I've seen them for myself. All right, I'm looking for, oh, you know what? I'm thinking it's in the building, sorry. So lightning bolt means instant action, right? In the case of him, you would move up 1 virtue. Now, also on some of these, it will say things like quarry. This has no instance. If you hire him, he becomes a stone cutter and there's no instant action, and this works at the quarry. And what that means is you get +1 stone whenever you go to the quarry. So if blue had this person and they had 2 people at the quarry, right? They had 2 people sitting at the quarry, and they had this worker in front of them, they would get 2 stone plus 1 more. So they get a total of 3 stones. So the brown area up here, it tells you when it happens, when you use it, and how it happens. This tells you the type of worker they are. And then if there is, like I pointed out, the purple, whoops, if there's the, not the purple, if there's the lightning bolt, it tells you an instant action, all right? All right, so the next thing that we'll look at is the building cards. So we have some things to think about with these building cards. It tells you what kind of worker you have to have as an apprentice. So to build this building, it tells you have to have 1 woodcutter. You have to pay 1 clay, I had to think about it for a second, 1 clay, 3 wood, 1 stone, 1 gold to make this building. Now, these are points that you get at the end of the game. You count them up at the end of the game. And then this symbol, the flag, means at the end of the game. So at the end of the game, you would score 1 victory or 1 virtue. I always want to say virtue. You go 1 up the virtue track for every 2 marble you have. At the end of the game, you mark that. And I will tell you guys how you actually build these buildings when we get to it. Trust me, it's one of the things that you do at one of the locations. Hint, I've already talked about that location a little bit. All right, so there's the workshop. Next, we are going to look at the town center, right? So we have a town center here. I don't know why I'm trying to make these look nice now because these are my example guys. So town center, what can you do in the town center? The town center allows you to capture workers. That's what that sign means, capture worker. And how this works is you would put a meeple down there, put one of your meeples down, and let's go ahead and make an example here. Let's say in the forest, we have some workers, some people over there working. Here, we'll even put one of our guys at the forest too. Lots of people chopping wood right now. So you would put one of your meeples down there, and you would pay 1 gold to the tax, or sorry, 1 silver to the taxes. So you would take 1 silver and you would pay it to the taxes. 1 silver to the taxes, and it allows you to collect up capture 1 group of people. And so what this is doing is the idea is that you're sending out some people, you're going to the town center saying, hey, these people probably shouldn't be cutting wood where they're cutting wood. We should kind of collect them up. So I put my person down, I pay my 1 to taxes, I take green, right? And this I'm probably not gonna be able to show you in this example. So let's go ahead and shift it around so you guys can see. Let's go ahead with yellow because I want you guys to be able to see this. Yellow puts their worker down, right? They go to the town center, right? Yellow pays their 1 silver to taxes. And they say, hey, look, there's lots of green guys cutting wood they shouldn't. So placing your meeple and paying 1 silver allows you to capture one group of workers, and you put them right here in your little capture zone on your card. So if a second worker is put down there, you can capture two groups in one location. So plus one group per worker that's put here. So plus one group per worker in silver. So how this one would work is I put my second meeple down. I decide I want to get both those people. We'll explain here in a second. I have two meeples down, and I have I'm going to pay 2 gold to the stack, right? So what I do here is I can collect up this blue guy, capture him, and he goes captured, and I can capture my own meeples and put them back on my board. Now I get to play with, I have more meeples to move around and more things to do. So that is kind of how that works. Well, that isn't kind of, that's how the town center works. I'm just going ahead and setting everything back. All right, so after the town center, we have another location that we can talk about, and that is the tax stand. Tax stand's fairly simple. With the tax stand, you put down a worker there and you get all the gold, or I keep saying gold, sorry guys, all the silver that's right here. There is gold in this game, that's why I keep saying sorry. If the silver will come to me, and you collect all the silver. But you would also move down 2 spots on the virtue track. So you would move down to 5. And we'll talk about the virtue track and how it works later. But you would get all this silver, right? So blue would get all that silver. All right. Tax stand is super easy. So now, let me move to the other side. We're going to go to the guard house. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So the guard house is over here. Same principle. You put down a worker and you get 1 action. It's the same as not the town center, but it's the same as the storehouse. For each worker you put down, you get an action. So in this case, you put down your first worker, right? Let's go ahead and say, well, let's give yellow some bounty. Let's give him some people. So yellow will put down a worker, and they could do one of 2 things. Let's go ahead and set this example up good. Nice and good like. So the worker gets put down. Yellow would pay their 1 silver, which yellow has no silver anymore because I've been paying it out to everybody. All right, so you can put a worker down, you get 1 action. You can either pay 1 silver, right? And since it's not red, it goes just to the material pile. For 1 silver, you can take all of the people that you've captured and go ahead and put them in prison. You can put all these other workers, all these other people's meeples in prison. The other thing you can do is you can go here, right? You put your meeple down and you can take all your guys out of prison. You can free your guys. You can say, free my people, right? And you could free all your guys. So either you can pay 1 silver and give any captured meeples, or you can just go there and free any of the meeples that you have in prison. Now, there's some other things that you can do. So let's go ahead and, since we have yellow there, we'll go like this just so you guys can see it. So you can go here and you can either pay 5 silver, 2 to the taxes, and 3 just go to the material pile. Or you can take a debt card, and these are debt cards, and we'll talk about how you work with those. Or you could take a debt card and lose a virtue to free all of your meeples captured by anybody else. So if I were to go here, let's say I paid the 5 silver, 2 to taxes, 3 to the discard pile, right? I can collect up all my captured meeples from everybody else. They have to give me the meeples they captured before they even get to put them to prison, right? I get to get my meeples back. Why do you do that? Because you use the meeples to do things, right? You might want your meeples. The other way I can do that is I can take one of these, like I said, and this is a debt card, and you set it down in front of you face up, right? And it tells you at the end of the game, you'll lose 2 points if you don't satisfy this debt. Now there's ways to satisfy the debt that you can go through. One of them is getting all the way up the virtue track, right? And we'll talk about that here later. But the other way that you can get rid of this debt, so let's say yellow has this debt. They didn't have the silver, they wanted their meeples back, so they took on debt. They lost a spot on this virtue track, right? We'll put them right there. But in a subsequent turn, they go here. Now this means they have 2 actions because they have 2 meeples there. They can do any 2 of these actions here if they want. They would obviously not capture, turn into the prison people they've captured twice. They wouldn't have to take the people out of prison twice. And they also wouldn't have to collect up captured meeples from other players twice. The one thing that they would do twice is down here, right? So let's go ahead and say, as we're following this example, up here he took the debt on. So he wants to get rid of that debt. He can put another worker down and he has 6. He has to pay 6 silver. 3 to the taxes, 3 go to the discard. And then this debt gets flipped over, right? And he keeps the card still. Oh no, he doesn't keep the card, my bad. So he flips the debt over. If you have still owe debt, you keep it. Once you flip it over, as you see, there's that instant action. You get to move up 1 on the virtue track. So it gets to move you back up there. And this one, they're all the same, so you can just put it on top. They're all exactly the same. So that is the third action. So the actions that you can do when going here, just to go over them really quick again. You could pay 1 silver, and any people that you've captured, any meeples, you can go ahead and put them in prison, in the guardhouse. You can go there and get any of your people out of the guardhouse. You can pay money or take on a debt and lose a virtue to collect up your captured people from other players. Or you could pay the money, the 6 silver, 3 to taxes, right? 3 to the tax stand and 3 to the discard pile, and you can get rid of 1 of your debts, right? Which moves you up the virtue track. So that is the guardhouse. And it seems like there's a lot, but once you kind of work through what's going on here, it is a fairly simple game to work through. Now, to the guild hall, and this is what we really want to know. How do we make these buildings? How do we get these buildings down? Where do we put our meeples, right? Besides what we already talked about, having the required costs, right, to put that down to get us points. Well, what you do is you go to the guild hall, and we talked about the guild hall, right? So you would put your worker the top leftmost position. Once you put your meeple there, I keep all mixed between worker and meeple. Once you put your meeple there, you can either build, right? You could take one of your cards and go ahead and build it. This special worker, you would just pay 3 clay, 1 wood, 2 stone, and you'd go ahead and put that down in front of you. And as you see on here, at the end of the game, you would get 1 point for every woodworker you have, plus the 5 points that are right there. So you can either build one of these buildings by doing the requirements on the card. Buildings give you points. The other thing that you can do, and this is what the whole game is, the theme of the game is about, is you're building this cathedral. You're trying to be the greatest architect, obviously, in the West Kingdom, but part of that is building this cathedral. Now, how you build the cathedral is you pay the given amount that it says right here to move up to each level. So the first level, you would have to pay 1 gold and discard, that X means to discard 1 of your building cards. So if you wanted to go up to the first level, 1 gold, discard. The next one is 4, either wood or stone or wood, plus discard a card, get you to the next level. Marble plus discard a card, next level. Wood, stone and wood times 8 plus discard a card, next level. And then 2 gold, 2 marble for that top level. One of the things that you might notice as you're looking here is there are 3 spots, 3 spot, 2, 2, and 1. There's not room for everybody to go up. And so what happens is if, let's say, these 3 players have already gone into this first position, The blue player has to wait until one of these players moves up to the next slot. And then he would move in, he can move in there by paying the price, going here to the guild hall and paying the price. And as you see, same here, if there's 2 there, purple can't move up, right? 2 here, whoever's there can't move up, so on and so forth. Now, why do you want to build the cathedral? Well, you want to build the cathedral because you get points, right? The higher up you get, the more points you get, which helps you at the end of the game. Now, let's go ahead and see. We went through all the places on here. We talked about the cards and how you look at them. Last thing, I knew there was one more thing that was slipping my mind that we need to talk about is the virtue track. How the virtue track works, I showed you already. You can lose virtue, which is that line through the virtue, or you can gain virtue, like right here. So the higher you go up in the virtue track, as you see, let me move these out of the way. So 6, 7, 8, 9, you start at 7, everyone starts at 7. There's nothing that kind of happens, you're just there. Now, once you go up higher, one thing is you get more points, the higher you go up the virtue track. The other thing is it's marked here, if you are 10 or higher on the virtue track, you cannot go to the black market. I feel like I skipped the black market. We will go back to the black market. Bad Steven. All right. Now, the higher you go up on this, you cannot go to the black market. The other thing is, if you've made it all the way up to 14, any more virtue you get allows you to discard a debt card. Now, when you discard that debt card, it doesn't matter that you go up the virtue track. And there are also apprentices that do certain things when discarding debt cards and things like that, right? They have certain abilities that they can do. Those aren't affected at this point when you get anything above 14 virtue. Now, going down, the other side is when you go down the virtue track, right? At least when you get right here, you start getting negative points. 1, 5, 5, 7, 8, 9, and this just goes up by 1. But the thing is, once you get to -4 virtue, you can no longer work on the cathedral. You're not considered a nice enough person to build the glorious cathedral. Then as you go down the virtue track, you get lower, you pay less taxes. This means anytime you would have to pay taxes, you pay 1 less, 2 less taxes, 2 less taxes. And then if you get all the way down to the bottom, if you get any more negative virtue, once you're already at 0, you gain a debt card. That's a debt card you have to pay off, right? So you can get away from that. So same as the top, once you get past the bottom most, so you have 0 virtue, you get more virtue, so -1 virtue, -2 virtue, you lose or you gain a debt card. Now, the other thing, there's one more thing actually that triggers people going to prison, right? It's not just capturing, right, and going to the guardhouse. I keep calling it prison, going to the guardhouse, right? One way to get to the guardhouse is if these fill up, right? And see that mark right there? It's like a bag with a little recycle. That means anybody in the black market goes to the guardhouse. That's one way people get sent to the guardhouse. The other way people get sent to the guardhouse is if you have 3 people here. Once there's 3 people in the black market, you collect up those 3 people and they go to the guardhouse. So if the guild hits any of these, there's 2 spots here, or if there's already 3 workers in the black market, once the last worker who's set down does their action, they go ahead and go to the guardhouse. Now, how the black market works, which I skipped and I apologize completely, is you have different spots. If you put a worker down right here, you go ahead and take whatever's here. So 1 gold, 1 wood. If you put a worker down right here, you have, well, you put a worker here and you pay 1 silver, 1 gold, 1 wood. You put a worker here, you pay 2 silver, and you lose a virtue. So this is blue. So let's go ahead and put him back up here. Blue would lose a virtue, right? But he also can hire a apprentice for free, or he can take 5 cards and pick one. So he can grab 5 cards from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can pick his favorite one. I don't know. Let's go ahead and say he picks that one. And he goes ahead and he takes the remainder cards and he sets it underneath here. So that's the second spot. And in the first spot, you lose 1 virtue. It tells you right here. Or you can go to the third spot, pay 3 silver, lose 1 virtue, and you get 2 marble or 1 stone and 1 wood. Now this shifts throughout the game. Anytime the black market is reset, that's what this symbol means, is black market, black bag, reset. Anytime that happens, you take the top card of the small black market deck and you just flip it over and that changes to the large. So that kind of cycles through the black market. And that's how the black market works. Now, the last thing, let's say that these are filled, and I'm not going to put them all there. We'll just fill the bottom row because it would take a lot of time in the video to do this. And I'm just putting a whole bunch of ones here, right? And you can actually put these in any order that you want. So go ahead and put that guy down and blue. And just imagine all these are filled up too. Once he goes there, everybody gets their last turn. They can still get more virtue. You can still, in the last phase, put more people in the guild hall to build buildings or pay to work on the cathedral. You just kind of put them off to the side. You can still use the guild hall in that last round, right? So just so you know, just because that's filled up, this just means the end game starts, then you can use the guild hall. Once that happens, everyone gets their turn and then you score. The nice thing about the cards down here is it tells you how to score. Score your buildings, right? Score all the cards that you have out here. And that means both scoring for, let's look at these two. The points at the top, I guess we can just look at one of them. The points at the top and, well, that's an instant and that's an instant. Of course you grab 2 instances, Stephen. Why not? All right. And that one is a little interesting to explain. Come on, Stephen, we can do it. Come on, Stephen, now. All right, here we go. So an easy one for me to explain to you guys. So the first thing you count is your buildings that you've built. So 5 points plus the end game says 1 more point for every woodcutting apprentice you have. So you would count that up. The next thing that you look at for scoring at the end is cathedral. How high up this cathedral track have you made it, right? So these two would get 2, this person would get 4, that person would get 12. The next is the virtue track. How high up or down the virtue track are you? Because up gives you points at certain levels, down gives you points. In this middle area, you get no points. Then you look at how many deck cards. Remember, these are the deck cards. I'm going to have to reach across and not fall on the table. How many deck cards do you have that you haven't paid? So you would subtract points for deck cards. So every deck card, you lose 2 points. So that would be 4 points. Then you count how much gold and marble you have. Each one is worth 1 point. Silver, every 10 silver is worth 1 point. And then you look to see if you have any people in the guardhouse. For every 2 people you have in the guardhouse, you lose a point. So you just do that and you work it all. Or you could do all the plus points and then do the negative points, however you want to do it. But then you add it up. Each person adds it up. Whoever has the most points is the greatest architect, right? And then whoever, if there's a tie, right, people have the same amount, you look at who's higher on the virtue track. If there's a tie there, then you look at who has the most silver. If there's a tie there, then the winning architect, they're both the best architects. You share the win. And that is hopefully an understandable way of how to play Architects of the West Kingdom. Now, I need to sit down and play this. I've gone over how to play it a couple times, and there is a solo mode, and I think I might do a solo mode, how to play solo mode too. Because with solo mode, there's even a card, and you can pick what person the AI is going to play as. You have 2 people, right? You have Constantine and Helena, and you play against them. And there's rules for a solo mode that come in the base, because I have just the base from a big box store version of this game. Solo mode comes with it, so you can play solo. And you can also do a 2-player plus AI. So it means 2 players would play plus AI. So I'll probably do a solo how to play too, just to kind of explain it to you guys. But what I was gonna say is I played Raiders of the North Sea. I really enjoy it. And I just played it recently with all the expansions for Raiders of the North Sea, and it really made me want to get out Architects of the West Kingdom, which I got for Resvon because she is an architect, and I figure she might enjoy this game. We might have to wait for Resvon to get here to play it, but we'll see what we can do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this how to play of Architects of the West Kingdom. I'll see you later, everybody. Bye.